Let's review my blurring background tutorial. As I've done in several of the other tutorials, we're going to follow along with the written one, so I make sure that I don't leave anything out. I really went crazy with this one and took it far beyond the basics of this tutorial, but that's half the fun of learning to play in Photoshop Elements. Down here you see I have a photo of my boys, and we're going to go look at that layout now. And here's my layout, and this is a great way to fake depth of field. There's some other tutorials out there that share with you what depth of field is and how you can get that in your camera naturally, but you can also create depth of field in Photoshop Elements. Definitely a great fake of that. I've got the original photo here so you can see the difference between that and this, where the black background is blurred. And so let's go ahead and get rid of all of this stuff and begin to play. Now the tutorial shares a method for extracting, and I have lots of tutorials now, lots of videos up there on extracting, and this is one reason why you would want to extract a photo, a great application for that. So let me show you how I did it in this tutorial, and I'm going to do this quickly, and I would suggest that for this technique you don't have to be real exact. It's okay to include a little bit more than you would when you're extracting something to that is going to not remain on its original photo, because it'll kind of fill in the areas because it's going to be just kind of blending into its original state. Right click on this tool, on the lasso tool, and choose the magnetic lasso tool, and then click down once and just kind of let this follow. You can see it's finding the edges of my son's body. I love this photo. My father actually gave the boys these root beer bottles at a Civil War reenactment, and my dad's passed away now, and so it's kind of a little special memory. It was a reenactment at a place where his grandmother was very fond of. So you can see I quickly got a selection around him, but it's not exact. The new quick selection tool, which wasn't available when I wrote this tutorial, might even do a better job than this, but I think this is helpful to have us learn. So let's go ahead and get just the regular selection brush tool and zoom in and kind of clean up this a little bit. And I'm going to hold the Alt key to subtract from the selection right in here where it did get a little too much, but you can see I'm not being exact. Holding down the space bar key to get the hand tool so that I can just quickly go down here. We're gonna hold the Alt key as I get some more of these areas, and I'm not gonna get too finicky there. Let's leave that between his legs. Now down here I'm not gonna hold down the Alt key because it missed some of his feet, and just kind of add some more. If I go beyond it, as I said before, it's okay. I don't really want to get that pan though. I want that pan to blur, but if some of the grass doesn't blur, that is certainly okay. Whoops. Hold down the Alt key, take away some of that. Let's go on up this side. Need to make sure it didn't get all of his pants there. I'm just toggling between using the Alt key and not to make sure, whoops, we have all of him in this. And you see I'm going outside of his ear. That's okay. Okay, once I get that selection, I'm going to make sure that I'm on the photo layer, press Ctrl J, and now you can see, make this invisible, you can see he's on a layer by himself. But I have two sons, so I have to do this again. And in this case, I'm going to show you the quick selection tool because it's actually, you see, much faster. I'm going to zoom in here, hold down the Alt key and take away some parts of it. It's not cooperating, so that's when you can go back in and get your regular selection tool again and clean it up a little nicer. I think, let's go back to the quick selection tool, hold down the Alt key and go between his legs, see what we get. Now, let's hit undo, let's not do that. I know what's happening. Let's make my brush smaller and try this Alt key again. I'm going to try tapping. There, that worked a little better. Rather than drawing with it, go back to the quick selection tool. Make sure we get all of his feet. We don't want all of this shadow. Definitely don't want that grill because we want it to oh, look, it missed his entire arm because we want that grill to be blurred. Let's see, it looked like it got his ear, and that okay. So it's not, like I said, that important to get too picky. I'm going to make sure I'm on my photo layer, Control J, put him on a new layer. Now here's where the fun comes. Make sure that I'm on my photo layer and we're going to blur the background. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Let's move this to the side so we can see what happens. And we'll move the slider up and just kind of observe, decide what I like, what sort of blur I like. You can see it's already starting to blur the background, and I've got it up around 5, and this is about 6.3 there. Looks nice, maybe a little too much to look natural. That sort of is blurred and natural from the camera, as if the camera would have done it itself. It's nice to be able to blur this lady out here. I could even blur her more later with this blur tool here. But you can see that looks nice, and it was just as simple as that. We didn't even work that hard at our extractions. Now you can continue on up, and this creates for a more artistic type layout, and this is perfectly good too if this is what you're going for. For me, I wanted to know that it was still a tent in the background. I wanted to know that they were at the Civil War reenactment setting, and so I wouldn't, for my purposes, I didn't blur it this much. But there may be times when you want it blurred this much. I mean, the light coming down on their faces here is very artistic, and if you're going to blur it this much, let's zoom in. Well, I can't zoom in while it's here, but down in here you can see the extraction matters. If you're going to blur it this much, you're going to have to clean up your extraction some, and you can even raise it up higher, and now that would be really artistic. I think I have used all 3 of these types of settings in layouts. You just have to choose what purpose you're going for. And now I'm going to cancel it though, uh, so we can go ahead and play with the other things in the tutorial, because that's simply how to blur the background. And there's the Gaussian blur in the tutorial. A little more blurrier and a little more blurrier, as we just did. Now let's check out the motion blur. Under the filter drop down menu, blur, motion blur, and just simply move the slider, and you can see it creates a blur. Now this one is really great if you've got some sports action shot. If you've got your kid running in a soccer shot, to create a layout that's artistic and lends to the feel that it's a true action shot. Oh, certainly use this. But you can see what it does around the edges here. Let's see. I think what you need to do for this one, hold down your Alt key, click on the photo layer to get these marching ants around the photo. We're clicking on the thumbnail in the photo layer. I've done this in so many tutorials, I'm assuming you already know how to do that. We're going to go back to blur, motion blur, and try that again. And now that it's a selection, you can see it kind of keeps within the bounds and doesn't blur it out so far on the layout. But if you're using this, it's a good idea to have the appropriate background paper behind it, so that it blends in. And you may need to do some other finagling. You may want to make it a selection before you do it, and you may not. Play with it. Haven't I always said playing is fun? And so now we're going to choose the radial blur. And now this is really kind of a psychedelic one. Filter, blur, radial blur, and these are all similar. You just get in here and play till you get something. What am I on the wrong layer? I'm on the right layer. Let's see. This one doesn't have a preview with it, so you gotta click OK before you can see what it looks like, obviously. That is not good. That setting was not good, so you just hit the undo button, you know, because that undo button, what happened? It didn't come up. Blur, radial blur, there it is. Let's do it so it's not so crazy. And there's also the choice to have it zoom here, and then you click on it, and there you go. Now I don't know, there's not a whole lot of purpose for this unless you're doing something very creative. Just put your thinking cap on. I can see this maybe with a child coming out of a slide. You can even include part of the slide with the child, and then have this in the background the rest of the way. So just something to point out because it's fun. You can see I only blurred mine 14 here, and here. Oh, let's go do this. Let's go back in here. What were we using? Radial blur. And let's take that down to the 14 or so that I have in my tutorial. And now you can change the center of gravity. I wish I could really change the center of gravity, make myself look thinner. But and move this down here or anywhere to get a whole different effect. And there you can see that the circle begins here and goes out. And so just remember that that's available. You might be able to utilize that. You might have the perfect photo for it. And here you can change the option to zoom. Let's go ahead and do that. Filter, blur, radial blur. We can use zoom, and let's put that back in the center. And this one makes me dizzy. I don't know about you, but that really I don't know, might be appropriate if you got some girl whirling about on a swing or something. Um, got to find the right photo for these things. You really do, but they are there and you can really utilize them. Let's see, Smart Blur. And it's another tool, and it has three modes: the normal, the edge only, and the overlay edge. The normal mode is not very useful for the purposes of this tutorial, but it's an often overlooked tool with great purposes. The Smart Blur reduces noise such as blotchy places or spots, and in fact I think I have a whole nother tutorial on this. Um, that actually shares better how you can utilize this tool. In essence, it will undo what the noise filter does. So when the noise filter will add noise, this will help take away noise. It finds the edges of subjects and protects them while slightly blurring everything else to smooth out the blotches, which is so handy. The change after running this tool is not dramatic enough to be utilized in this tutorial. However, it's useful for grainy photos. So that is the edge only. No, that's the normal mode. And so now we're going to look at the edge only as it applies to a white line to all defined edges and fills in the remaining area with black. Let's go up here. Filter, Blur, Smart Blur. And down here's the normal mode, which we talked about just now. Not really good for this tutorial. Edge only. Let's read what it does again. Applies a white line to all the edges. You'll remember up here in the normal mode I said it finds the edges of everything. So it will find the edges and apply a white line to it and put a black in the remaining areas. And you can change these sliders and kind of look at them in the preview to see what they do when you change the threshold. See, it's changing what it finds. You know, the more I move it up, the more finite those lines. I'll click OK, and you can see that's kind of pretty cool because you can still see that it's a camp, but this is a kid guy cool or a kid cool kind of layout. It's almost like putting a real picture of them into a comic book drawing. So that is really cool. I kind of like that one. And the third mode is the overlay mode. Also creates a very unique background for artistic layouts. This mode also applies the white line to the defined edges. However, rather than filling it in with black, it just blurs yet sharpens the remaining area. So this tool works the same, just with a little bit of differences between it. So the normal mode puts a slight blur just to get rid of grain. The edge only will fill in black where it doesn't fill in the lines, and the overlay edge will just make it ever so slightly blurry, but it still puts the white edges you can see here. Let's go ahead and click OK, and you can see the really cool effect that that gives. I actually really like this one. Really cool. And don't stop there. Now that I've got your creative juices flowing and thinking, test other filters. There are so many filters. Here, I'm not going to actually do them because we can look in the tutorial here. Here is using the smudge stick. I really like the smudge stick one. And here is the crosshatch filter. I really like that one too. So you can apply any filter to this background photo to get something artistic. and blur it. I mean, only the first one with a small Gaussian blur will make it realistic, like it just came out of the camera with a depth of field. But we don't. That's the beauty of digital scrapbooking. We like to play, and we don't need to be artistic. I mean, we don't need to be realistic. We can be artistic if we want. And more possibilities. Let me show you what we can do. Try lowering the opacity, changing the blending modes. Let's hit the undo on this. Duplicate our photo, and I'm going to apply that filter that we just ran on this one. And now let's change it to a multiply. Nope, that doesn't work. Let's run through the filters, see if we can find one that really enhances it. That's pretty wild right there. That's a linear dodge. And so you can apply a filter to a top layer and then find a blending mode that works. Where was that linear dodge? This one here. And also, if you don't like it, if it's too stark of a difference, change the blending mode. So you can get all sorts of really cool things when you try to let your imagination just run wild. Often it's when I play like this that I get the most comments on my layouts, and I think people wonder how I do it. Well, I don't know how I do it because I don't do it twice. Couldn't do it twice. I just arrive at it while playing. Remember, here I'm blending it with another duplicate of the photo below, but what would that look like if you would blend it with a paper? And I'm just going to fill it with a solid color. I think I'm going to fill it with a solid color. Alt backspace. There. Control D. I don't know why I was selected. So there's yet even another effect. If you're doing some kind of filter on it and then blending it and changing the opacity of it with paper or just another solid color. And so, hey, looks like pukey color. I'm sorry. Can't change it. It looks like puke. Green's a little better. All right. I can't wait to see what you do with this. This is one of my favorite techniques. One of the things I think create some of my most artistic layouts. And one I have the most fun with. And so I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and certainly I'll be watching for your layouts. Thanks.